And now it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Sam Houston's class of 2017 salutatorian, Tanner Simon.
Drink some water. Sorry, give me a sec. Good afternoon. Before I formally begin my speech, I'd like to begin with the cliche thank you section. So I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, my stepdad Greg, my brothers Logan and Jackson, my aunt Auntie, my grandparents Tutu, Papops, Granny and Pawpaw, and all my teachers and friends for always helping and supporting me throughout my life. I'd also like to give you my congratulations, the class of 2021. Now let's get to the not so cliche part. For those of you who know me, you know that I'm a bit of a math nerd. And for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Tanner, and I'm a bit of a math nerd. It's nice to meet you. Now, I know for a lot of you, part of the joy of leaving high school is that you think you'll never have to do or hear about math ever again. To those people, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to talk about math. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my favorite equation, and arguably the most beautiful equation in mathematics, e to the pi I plus 1 equals 0. There it is. It's beautiful. The thing that makes this equation so beautiful is that it is comprised of 5 of the most significant mathematical constants. Let's say that this equation represents life and our futures in all of its beauty. In this case, each of the 5 constants in the equation will represent a different aspect of your future. First, we have E, also called Euler's number. E is a number that is very common in the natural world, yet its beauty and importance is often overlooked. Perhaps this is due to the fact that it is so common and it can be seen as mundane. So from E, I think the lesson that should be learned is that you should not go into your future disregarding the small, seemingly mundane aspects of life, because oftentimes these small aspects are 100% responsible for the direction in which your life goes. Second, we have pi. Most of you probably remember pi as that number from geometry that had something to do with circles. You guys probably remember it was 3.141592653589779. Sorry, I get carried away. Anyhow, for those of you who know what pi is, you probably know that it is irrational. And this is the characteristic that I would like to focus on. In your future, you will run into problems that seem irrational and don't make sense when you encounter them. And they will push you to your limits as you try to defeat them. So I urge you, no matter where you're going next year, when you run into an irrational barrier that may seem too difficult to pass at the time, just keep trying. As Albert Einstein once said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. That brings us to I, the imaginary number. I is defined as the square root of -1, which doesn't actually exist, so it was decided that an imaginary value should be created instead. I is a perfect example of how people overcame a seemingly irrational challenge, and they did it with imagination. This brings me to my next point. When you do run into a challenge in your future, sometimes the only way to overcome it is to take a creative approach. Once again, Einstein said it best. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. So don't be afraid to think outside the box and let imagination take the place of logic every once in a while. Next, we arrive at the +1 part of the equation. Although a seemingly simple aspect of the single greatest equation ever, it carries a heavy weight. Without the plus one, you wouldn't have the 5 most significant mathematical constants in one equation. What I'd like you to take from the plus one is that there is always one more thing to do. You should never feel that you have nothing else to do in life. There is always one more problem to solve and one more goal to be reached. And even if you feel that you have accomplished all of your personal goals, there is always one more person you can help or one more goal you can set. In short, you are never done, and there is always one more task to be completed, no matter how small. Finally, we arrive at 0, the end of the equation and the right side of the equals sign. In order to get here, we had to go through the entire left side of the equation, which included e, pi, the imaginary number I, and plus 1. As in any equation, each of these aspects on the left side were combined to equate to 0. This leads me to my final point. As long as you remember to acknowledge the seemingly mundane aspects of life, and as long as you remember that there will be irrational problems which you encounter throughout your future, and as long as you remember to face these problems with imagination, and as long as you remember that there is always one more thing you can do, then this will equate to the 0 of our equation. Nothing is impossible, except maybe like giving an entertaining and engaging graduation speech. Good luck, Amy. So as you go forward into your future, whether it be college, the military, or the workforce, remember this equation and what it represents. E to the pi I plus 1 equals 0. Thank you.